Hi guys, today I'll be bringing you more of like a deck theory and discussion video of Virtual World. Now, in my last video, a lot of people ended up asking me either in private or through the YouTube comment section why like certain things I played in that Virtual World deck list. I'll just go and tell you now. Like I said in that video, a lot of that was just for theory and for fun. So now people are more asking, what is the ideal deck list? What would I bring to a tournament? So to preface this entire video, I would just like to put it out there. I don't think if you really seriously want to compete in this current format, Virtual World is particularly good or the right choice. However, please go prove me wrong because I would love to see that happen. So without further ado, let's get on to this. So starting off, the Virtual World core is around 23 cards in the main deck and 4 in the extra. Now, immediately, some people might say, hey, Coral Dragon and Stardust Charge Warrior aren't technically Virtual World cards. And for that, you're definitely right. However, both of these cards are indispensable to the strategy. They both represent a draw and a level 6, and also like a Xyz material for a rank 6. For Virtual World, especially Charge Warrior, is probably the most integral card because of the fact that in really dire situations, it's probably your only hope out of it, as it's a draw 1 on summon. Now, I do understand some people are also playing cards like Malong. I'll just put it out there. I'm speaking of this from an almost biased perspective because I have not tested every strategy. I've tried a lot of them. However, Virtual World is a creative deck. It does not punish people who are creative, but rather people who still stay with the same stagnant strategy. So without further ado, let's get right into this. I believe personally that Virtual World is 23 bricks in the main because I don't think Virtual World is, technically speaking, a very consistent deck. And this does come from the fact that if you open too much gates and not enough names, or if you open the wrong names and no gates, or a lot of those kinds of combinations, you'll get screwed over. Therefore, as you'll see in here, I just represent like this is kind of what you have to have as your main. Now it's 3 Lily, 3 Lala, 3 Lulu, 2 Nian Nian, and 3 Gigi. The only ones that you can consistently cut away from this, if you want to play more consistent cards, are Lao Lao and King Long, okay? The rest of this is inarguably can't be cut. Maybe there is a justification for a Lili, however, this can never be cut. As for the extra deck, Shenshun's way too good of a card to cut in the strategy, and Juju, while Juju rarely comes up when it does, it is always phenomenal because of its effect. I'm not going to go too over it during this video, but you could go look at it afterwards. As for this, I don't think Malong is particularly great. I don't think its level effect, which is the one that's more relevant in my personal opinion, is particularly good for making a Changing or a Barone or some other variant of those, right? Now, don't get me wrong, those cards are good. However, I don't think it's worth investing a space into it, and I'll get into that later. So let's go into the virtual techs, so like the tech cards. So before we continue, I just need to add both Gen and Ken here along with the text, and as well as, I guess, for fun, the Rescuers package. So the way I split this is pretty, in my personal opinion, interesting. I basically put all of like the random virtual tech spots that you could put in like the main, like in the main deck here, and then all like the Beatrice send targets and some of the extra deck spaces here. So let's go off of this. Most of these are variants of Virtual World that you can end up running. Unfortunately, I seem to have sorted this by accident, and I do apologize for that. So I'll just go over this really quickly. The punk cards in Virtual World, I think, are actually very good because you can special summon them off Emergency Teleporter. However, another problem with that is because the punk cards, I do think, aren't exactly the greatest. Now, don't get me wrong, they are good. And if you have to go for one variant of Virtual World, I do think punk is up there with one of the best. Um, the biggest problem with Punk Virtual World is that I don't think Psychic and Punisher is particularly great, and that's one of the big benefits of playing at this format. However, this is still definitely something to keep into consideration. So the Punk cards, please, by the way, even though I've given you my personal opinion on a lot of these, go test out the strategy afterwards because I don't want you to just listen to this and not really try it out for yourself. Next, for the Sword Souls, Sword Soul is Virtual World is very interesting because the bridge point is emergence, being its ability to search worms, which a Virtual World GG is. Sword Soul Virtual World has seen a lot of success, and you could also get away with playing really good cards like Barone and stuff. However, I don't think, as I said before, it's currently the format for this. I do think you could still brick, and it's kind of like not that great of a payoff if you don't open emergence and you just open hard sword soul cards. Definitely, like I said before, go test this out. And hell, in the comments, go argue with me and tell me like what you think is better, because I'd actually really like your input for this. So I'm just gonna take these out as well. Okay, next we're gonna go on to Fenrir. Fenrir, honestly, I don't actually like Fenrir that much. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a great card. You can use it as a discard fodder and stuff like that. However, I don't think, in my personal opinion, the level 10s in Virtual are particularly great. I still think the level 10s are like not worth the payoff, so I would definitely not play this. Now, Fenrir is also a great board breaker, but I do think you can innately play some board breaker cards in this deck, which I will get onto. All the cards I do play in my ideal Virtual World deck, I don't actually show here, and I instead opt to also not show you a side deck because I don't want you to have any sort of, I guess, like preconceptions about how you should build it. As for the adventure engine, I think the adventure engine is still very good. I think this might represent one of the better virtual formats. However, with the addition of transaction rollback and Mayakashi, I think that this might not be played as much because Beatrice used to be able to send Water Enchantress to go get Rite of Aramis-Here, right? But because of the fact that transaction rollback is a much better target to send now, I don't think it's worth as much playing. Skill Drain in Virtual is very interesting because you could dodge a lot of the effects in it. However, I don't think Skill Drain is also particularly good this format. You have the existence of Kieran and cards like that. Phantom Knight Virtual World is a very gimmicky concept that I've seen thrown a lot. It's very funny, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely not the greatest way you could play this deck, so I wouldn't recommend it. Pot of Prosperity you do not want to play in this deck. I do see some people playing this in Virtual World. The problem with that is you want your entire toolbox, right? Virtual World is ultimately is a toolbox deck. Banishing 3 or 6 is very bad, and in addition, you can't draw, which, as I said, Stardust Charge Warrior and cards that draw are integral to the strategy, and you do not want to lose them ever. Colorway Grave is at a 1. It's alright. I wouldn't recommend playing this, it's not worth the spot. Ghost Ogre used to be a really cool card. You can special someone off of E-Telly to out cards like Apollosa. However, that's not as good anymore due to the format change. Dr. Frankenderp is a very funny tech that I see some people summon off of Emergency Teleport. I actually recommend you try this out yourself. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, then it's a whole different thing. Jinzo is still very good. You don't ever normal summon in this strategy unless you have to. So a Jinzo into card matchups like Labyrinth is still very good. Ken and Gen, I've shown this in my original video. I'm just gonna put this out there. This is completely like a for fun thing. I'm not sure if this is gonna be good because they don't help you break boards. Now, don't get me wrong, if you do have to still have the inclination to play it, try the Rescue Ace package instead, because those are level 3s and 6, which goes and ties into your extra deck strategy. Now move on to extra deck. Kaliga is a Mud Dragon fusion target, which I'll explain more in the ideal one. This is another card you can summon other than Dragoon, and it is very good with Crystal Wing because this means your opponent can activate one monster effect per turn, and even if they attack into this, you can use Chusha to pop it. Next, Final Sigma. This hurts me personally because I think Final Sigma is a phenomenal card before. However, 3k attack is not a lot, especially with the Fire King deck in the strategy, and you can really easily out this, which is just unfortunate. And Utopia Beyond is actually tying into the Final Sigma strategy. So one board you could do is Final Sigma in the EMZ, and then Utopia Beyond you make it, making all your opponent's cards 0, and this is non-targeting, so it's very good. And basically, what you can do is you could swing for 6,000 with this alone, and then you can swing with this per game. Navy Dragon Mech, I tested Navy Dragon Mech a lot. I don't think it's good, because you can only special summon this on your own turn. There isn't a way for Virtual World to do it on the opponent's turn. If you could do that, this would be a phenomenal card. But this is only alright. It helps kind of break boards. Vermilion Dragon Mech used to be a phenomenal card. However, with the current meta, where if you destroy a card, you kind of let your opponent go full combo, I wouldn't recommend this. It's still something to put into consideration for future. Cloud Castle. Before with Cloud Castle, you basically use Cloud Castle, revive Shen Shen, and then you go make VFD, or for people who don't know, that's True King of Armageddon. However, because that's no longer in the format, Cloud Castle isn't as good. Now, sure, you can use Cloud Castle to go make cards like the generator cards, right? But even then, you can just make this within archetype. I wouldn't recommend the generator stuff anyways. It's more of a gimmick thing. Malong, I already said the reasoning for that. Next, we're just gonna go speedrun these. This is just a Zeus target, although right now I wouldn't recommend this because of the existence of full armor package. Photon Strike Bouncer is more something a lot of people try to make work, but it doesn't really work because it's just not as good as people think because of the fact that you can only do this once per turn and it's just like a worse Lars. Now the full armor package, I've been testing this a lot on the side. I think it's very good. However, with the existence of transaction rollback coming in, I don't want to play more trap bricks in the main. Therefore, I decided to cut this in my ideal deck. But please, if you intend to still innovate and adapt with this deck in this current format, please continue testing this out because I don't believe that you should take everything I hear as gospel and you should still test your own. Now, the fun part is all the Beatrice targets and the extra deck. I'll just explain these first because I think the Beatrice targets are one of the more fun things about the virtual world strategy. First things first, Scarlight is just another target you can switch someone off of Zolkin if you're trying to burn for time. No Flung is just a generic level 6 you can use to burn for time. Next, Jaja and Fanfan. Before, Jaja was really interesting because you could use Jaja and use Chucha in the grave to rank this into a level 6 to make Gaia Charger on top of it for format Zeus, right? But now Jaja is in a really weird position where he's not really that good because of the existence of the full armor package. It's almost never worth to summon him as a rank 3 Zeus. And instead Fortune Tune is much better as well. Fanfan, I see a lot of people say Fanfan is a really good virtual world card that a lot of people don't play. In my almost 2 years of playing this deck at this point, because I started this in grade 12 of high school, never have I been, wow, Fanfan would have been amazing at this point. I always thought Fanfan was a bit subpar in comparison to other virtual worlds, because usually you could break boards with other ones. I don't think you should play this card, and that's just my personal opinion, but please still test it out. Next, we're going to go on to this. When I saw Virtual World was getting support, I was so ecstatic. I was in my university class. Like early in the morning, I saw this. I was so happy, and then I read its effect, and I was so disappointed. Virtual World had a really great opportunity to make a great Virtual World card. They could have made a gate. They could have made hell. This rank 9 technically could have been it, but it just wasn't honestly anything of note. Um, let's just go over why this card is bad. It's a rank 9, which means you invest a lot of resources into it, and it's a subpar effect. It's not anything that even ties into the virtual world strategy. Like, it doesn't make sense with it. With its effects for once per turn, you can detach one material and target one effect monster. You control one effect monster with a different attribute, negate their effects. That is something that they already do, which is just very disappointing. Next, we have Long Long. Long Long is just kind of more interesting. I do see it's kind of underrated, and you never really see it in much of these decks. Um, to be frank with you, I think Long Long might be something that is considered or played in like a weird format, but right now it's just very honestly underwhelming. Now let's go to the Beatrice targets. First, we have the Zombie King package. Baladrog is just another thing to send off of Beatrice when you first send Necro Banshee. Necro Banshee can go and make Zombie World. This actually is very, very good into Floowandereeze, and I played this package a lot back in the day. Next, we have the Crystal Beast package. I do use Secret Villages of Spellcasters here as my target for Rainbow Bridge, but this could be any field spell. Basically, what you do is use Beatrice, send this to the grave, then you banish this, and then you add one Crystal Beast Emerald Tortoise, and then one field spell of your choice. Very, very funny, and you can also use this in different decks other than this. It's something you should have into consideration. You could also search Necro Valley, but in this strategy, I wouldn't recommend it because it does conflict with a lot of stuff. Next is generic Beatrice targets, Token Collector for Sword Soul and other decks, and Adventure Engine. Mischief of the Gnomes for Sprite and some other funnies. Kaiju Slumber to Surge a Kaiju, and then this is Transaction Rollback Package. Out of all the Beatrice targets in the upcoming format, this is the best, don't get me wrong. However, I still feel like I don't think Transaction Rollback is going to stay in the meta for too long because I think it'll get banned. Just my personal opinion, so just something to consider. So now let's move on to my ideal version of this deck. Next, we have the ideal virtual world. Now, before you ask what the hell is this goes in conflicts with some of the stuff you just said earlier, I'd just like to preface, this is an ideal virtual world deck list with a pure variant, meaning I don't play any engines that I don't think I need to do. This is just very pure, and I want you to understand that this isn't a I don't think this is the definitive virtual world deck list. I just think it's a very good starting point if you want to build your own. Looking at this virtual world deck list, you can see I do still play 3 Lily, but I have cut down the Lala and I Kinglong in opting to play 2 Small World. Small World, unlike other decks where you go completely neg, in virtual world it's actually very good still because you could go Small World and then you could cycle it back with Yan Yan, right? As for why I play Triple Attack and Forbidden Droplet is only played because it does discard Kinglong and other mediocre virtual world cards in hand. You sometimes need this because, frankly speaking, the deck is just, it bricks a lot, right? And then as for the extra deck, Sulkin, Crystal Wing, Dragoon. I'll show a combo video if people want to see it enough. But basically, you have to play these in sequence because Virtual World, this does put up 2 negates and the Chusha Pop, which is very good. I'm not going to go in depth and explain this. If people want to get the deck code for this, just ask me later. I'll put it in the comments or something. But this is what I think is the best virtual world deck. Thank you for watching, and see you later.